Jamaica China Goodwill Infant. There they are. Welcome. COS and CAP and Kingston Technical. Good. Yalas High and Yalas Primary. St. Hilda's High. Brownstone High. York Castle. And we have some teachers from Sam Sharp Teachers College. Homewood Technical. Fantastic, that's there. BB Coke High and Newell High. Monroe College. Okay. Bishop Gibson High and Goshen Primary. Macintosh Primary. And we have some teachers from Church Teachers College and the Bethlehem Moravian College teachers. Good. And from Clarendon, Denby High and Central High. And just before we get into the business of the day, as you would have noticed, the members of the Senate welcomed you here. For those of you who it is the first time you are visiting us, this is a part of your democratic process. It's a part of the governance of your country. So when you come here, although you are visitors, you come here as a right, as citizens of Jamaica, to participate in the democratic process. And you're always welcome here. It is critically important that you, as teachers and young people, recognize the institutions that govern your country. The Senate is an integral part of these institutions. This is where all the legislation that is passed come for review. And there are two speakers today who you will hear who are going to speak more than likely in areas that you are interested in. But the basic thing that I want you to understand is that this is a part of the democratic process of your country, and you are always welcome here. Just indicate to the clerk when you want to come or the persons who you are in touch with, and you come and spend some time with us at any time that you want to. So on behalf of all the senators, welcome again to the Senate and to the House of Parliament. Statements by ministers.
Mr. President, last week I gave an assurance that this week I would make a statement on matters related to Venezuela. When I gave that assurance, I fully intended so to do. Regretfully, certain developments over the last few days have changed the circumstances within which I find myself this morning. And in those circumstances, I regretfully am not in a position to give that statement. I made efforts to contact Senator Knight, who had in fact raised the question this morning. Regretfully, he's traveling, I understand. I also indicated my difficulty to the Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate in this regard. The fact is, Mr. President, as I've said on more than one occasion, the matters related to foreign affairs are not always best conducted in the public domain. There are circumstances within which quiet diplomacy and sensitive discussions are required, and we are in such circumstances at this point in time. So I crave the understanding of members of the opposition on the matter. Thank you.
Bills brought from
President,
the Honour. Oh, I'm sorry.
As the Leader of Government Business has indicated, she did speak to me today, and I do understand and appreciate the nuances that take place in these kinds of discussions and negotiations. I would, however, like to say that having regard to recent developments, it makes it very urgent for the public to understand what is happening. Because on the one hand, President Maduro is being criticized, his legitimacy is being challenged on the basis that democracy was not at work. And for the public to see the approbation, the recognition of the leader of opposition in these circumstances is confusing and troubling, and I think there needs to be some clarity brought to that, because it sets a bad precedent altogether. And I'm sure at the appropriate time, the leader will explain to the public it is vital that it be done at the earliest possible opportunity.
President. Thank you very much, Leader.
President, yeah, I'm going to speak after my leader. We have a team on this side.
Mr. Brown, just address me now.
Yeah, Mr. President. I'm deeply concerned that a commitment, a solemn commitment made to the Senate last week, that at the next sitting, a statement will be made. And the minister said today that some things are best done behind the scene. But there was a press conference earlier this month by the minister. There's a comment this week by the minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Finance at a post-cabinet press briefing for which the Minister of Information would have been responsible. And I want to know whether or not, having gone publicly on some things, whether the government wishes to tell us whether or not they are engaged in negotiations with the government of Venezuela, and if that is the reason why they are not willing to make a statement today. And if so, which government in Venezuela are they negotiating with?
Mr. Brown, with the greatest of respect, I did not see any uncertainty or lack of clarity in the minister's statement. She indicated, as I understand it, that there are continuous developments, and she does not wish to make a statement today, and the leader of opposition business seems to have acknowledged that. So I don't think that I'm going to allow any engagement with the minister.
I'm not asking for an engagement, Mr. President, but the country was told last week certain things. They expect a statement. And I simply, as a senator and one who must engage out in the public, seek to find out whether or not this government is engaged in negotiations with the government of Venezuela, and if so, is it the government recognized by Trump, or is it the government recognized by some CARICOM states?
Thank you. I think the minister has made her position quite clear. Bills brought from the Honourable House of Representatives. Pardon? I didn't. I'm sorry. Announcements? I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Laid on the table of the Senate today are the following. Ministry Paper Number 2, an annual report and financial statements of the Sugar Industry Authority for the year 2016-2017. Ministry Paper Number 3, an annual report and financial statements of the Cocoa Industry Board for the year ended September 30, 2015. Ministry Paper Number 4, and annual report of the Jamaica Agricultural Society for the year ended March 31, 2016. Ministry Paper Number 5, and annual report of the Jamaica Agricultural Society for the year ended March 31, 2017. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Culture, Health, Arts, Sports and Education Chase Fund for the year 2017-2018. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Jamaica Social Investment Fund JSIF for the year 2017-2018. Annual report of the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, BCJ, for the year 2017-2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And in welcoming persons to the chamber, I neglected to identify the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education and Junior Minister for Education, Minister Green. Welcome to you both. Bills brought from the Honourable House of Representatives. Petitions. Papers. Reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions.
Mr. President, yes. On the question notice paper, there are two questions set of questions standing in my name. Last week, the Minister of Education was not present, and I raised the issue of answers to these questions. The leader of government business indicated that I should raise it with the Minister. Are answers available to the simple questions that I asked today? Answers which are due on the 21st of December 2018.
Senator Reid.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are working on the answers to those questions.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I understand the answer is no, but no timetable is being given to a simple question as to whether or not a public sector monitoring committee exists and how many meetings has been held since last year. How long must we wait for answers on simple questions like that when the standing order asks for 21 days?
Well, I can't answer that question, but he may make reference to it in his presentation, and hopefully, Senator Reid, you may try and get those answers next week.
Mr. President, let me tell you the concern I have. When I ask questions in the Senate, it takes an inordinate time for answer, in breach of the standing orders. But what is concerned me is that the House is going to be prorogued in another week or two, and these questions will fall off the other paper, and the people of Jamaica will not be allowed to get answers to questions that are legitimately asked and affect their relationship with the government. And so again I ask, can we get an assurance that these questions will be answered before the Parliament prorogues?
President, I want to assure the member, because certainly one in relation to the Public Sector Monitoring Committee, which we dealt with at Cabinet last sitting. So I can assure you I will be able to have those answers next sitting, and the one in relation to JCTU. The others, we're still collaborating with the ministries to get the date.
Thank you very much. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sitting of the Senate. Welcome to you both. I should say welcome to all three of you. Senator Morris, welcome. Motions relating to the sitting of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. The presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained. Public business. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, today it is intended for us to continue with the State of the Nation debate. Today it is anticipated that presentations will be made by Senator the Honorable Reid, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, as well as Senator Damian Crawford. We will start with Senator Crawford, having ended with Senator Braham last week. And it is my regret, Mr. President, that I must depart as I have some other obligations this morning. I have indicated to both presenters that I am very regretful that I'll miss their presentations, but I will watch them, as I'm quite sure they will be played in the different realms of social media and otherwise. And I am sure that we will all have a very good day with spirited contributions. With that, Mr. President, I thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Crawford.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Crawford.
Well, there was a time that I spoke before my
Senator
uncle.
Crawford. Proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was reminding the House that there was a time I spoke just before my uncle, Ransford, Senator Braham, and he took the opportunity to scold me in his speech. I should take the opportunity now. That was the plan. That was the plan. But my mom is returning to Jamaica this weekend, so by extension, the plan had to change. Yes, he's her favorite brother. But anyway, Mr. President, I want to say a special good or welcome to those who are in the gallery and to those who are supporting the ministry in the public service, and my good friend, Junior Minister of Youth, Education and Information, Minister Green. We're here in this section of the House all as political practitioners. And we have to ask ourselves sometime why. What is the effort that we exert in politics? And politics is really the effort to create the country that you're comfortable with. It's easy to understand if we look at the United States because their politics is more shown on TV, more consumed by our people. But if you look in the United States, if you're for abortion, then you are a conservative, you support the Republican Party. If you're against abortion, then you support the Democratic Party. If you are for the access and free access to guns, you support the Republican Party. And if you're for the control of guns, you support the Democratic Party. So basically, it is a struggle generally to create the country that you're comfortable with. And so when we have conversations here, we have to ask one simple question. What type of country am I comfortable with? We have to ask that question because many times we know what kind of house we're comfortable with, but we often don't reach as far to consider what kind of country we're comfortable with. Not realizing that it's unlikely you're going to get the house that you're comfortable with if you don't have that country that you're comfortable with. So I'm saying to you, therefore, well, I'm sure, for the simple fact that we have created a country that we perceive to be high crime, your house have enough grill. That's the type of country that you're comfortable with. So therefore, I said to myself, the country that I'm comfortable with is a developed country. Even though in Parliament and in news we talk about growth, growth is really just an assistant to development. Growth isn't automatic development. But with growth, you're able to develop. Absolutely. And I want a developed country. Yes. And that developed country is going to be measured by the Human Development Index. So that development, by its connotation and its denotation, suggests that youth must be at the center of the conversation. Right. Because the development is an improvement over time. And that improvement is a movement from a current state to an improved state in the future. And by extension, if we have any conversation about future, youth must be a central part of that conversation.
That's right.
Now, the first misstep that we have made in that conversation of youth is how we have sought to define youth only as an age group. So when we say we're talking about youth, we say they're under 30. That's what the Commonwealth have accepted. They're under 30. But youth is more than an age group, because if you look, for example, in Singapore, it's 35. In Nigeria, it's 35. And there are some people that would say it's 24. So youth really is a period of transition from dependence to independence. So when you're just born as a baby, you find that somebody have a baby, somebody have to feed you, and over time you start to do more things on your own. And we're saying that at the end of the period of youth, this person should be an independent citizen. We then have to ask ourselves, what is an independent Jamaican? What's an independent citizen in Jamaica? And what are the factors that are intervening to cause for a delay of that level of independence? So I want to say now, in my opinion, that an independent Jamaican must have certain things. Firstly, they must have an academic qualification of a degree or its equivalent. We're saying it's equivalent because skills are very important, and in many cases they don't offer degrees in skills. So level 4 in art, etc. would be a good equivalent. I remember going down to a hotel where we were doing construction. Many Jamaicans were complaining of not being employed. And when we asked, why is it that you're importing persons to do electrical and to do masonry, to lay tiles, our Jamaicans were not certified. And they say, even if the skill is available, Our insurance wouldn't cover us if the person that did the implementation was not certified. And so therefore, we are past the point that a person only had to graduate because of age, him age out of school. Him now have to qualify out of school. And so we are saying that we have to look at that and say, what do we want? We want an independent Jamaican to have legitimate access to housing that is en route to owning his own. Now, independence and freedom are things that we discuss. Now, understand this. If a person don't have a choice, then that person is not independent. So if you choose to live with a parent, that is fine. But if you have to live with a parent, that becomes a problem. And we are having more and more Jamaicans at 35, some of the 40, who have to live with their parent and not necessarily choosing to live with their parent. So we feel that we have to look for what are the hindrances that exist, that is creating a situation that adults, people that should have passed the age of transition, are still not independent. They have not transitioned over time. We have to also look and say that an independent Jamaican must be able to be an effective parent.
That's right.
That they must have been exposed sufficiently to parental training. Because we are recognizing that right now in our society, we are having issues with parenting, transferring negative practices onto their children, and our response so far has been to lock them up. Parents who have great interest in their child development, our response is that you have mistreated the child and locked them up. Now, let me just expose it to one reality. That behavior modification is a responsibility of a parent. That a parent must be engaged in the effort to modify their child's behavior. Now, if it is so, they have 3 options available to them for that behavior modification. The first one is going to be that they have the option of positive reinforcement, giving them something good because they have done something good. The second one is the option of negative reinforcement, taking away something good because they have done something bad. And the third option is punishment, applying something bad because they have done something bad. We have 500,000 Jamaicans living on less than $200 a day, which means that they're below the poverty line. That first 2 is not available to them. What are they going to give good when they can't afford most things good? When we can say we're going to take away the Wi-Fi, they had no Wi-Fi. When we can say no telephone, they had no cell phone. When you can say go to your room, everybody's in the same room. So how is it therefore that you're going to now give something good when you have nothing to give? And then because you had nothing to give, you have nothing to take back, so therefore negative reinforcement isn't available. The only thing available to them is punishment. But they have no knowledge of what is the best way to punish. So they beat. So we had a situation where the lady in St. Thomas who beat the child with the cutlass, when I could visit this lady, everybody says a wonderful lady, love her children, love even the other people's children. But in an attempt to modify her child behavior, she applied a harsh punishment. Now, when you're getting married, and Senator Brian will know, he married a lot of people. He's been encouraging other people to get married. He's encouraging weddings all the time. He does. Yes.
You don't take up him encouragement.
I'm listening to him. But Senator Brian will know that you have to get counseling to share your life with an adult. But you only need to be in a mood to get a child. Now, we need to be exposing our people to this level of training so that they can become independent people and to give off that. An independent person must be willing to be a volunteer. Must be willing to be a volunteer. Now, we're going to look at that because when I was growing up, long time, most of you never born them time. But when I was the ones up on the gallery, but we used to have scout and football, and most times the adults volunteered. Now we have a system that nobody is willing to volunteer. If there's no pay, there's no person. And so we have this concept that we have all these unattached youth, and we have no system to attach them. Because there are very limited volunteers available to do the training and the coaching and all. It's basically that voluntarism is dead. And finally, the independent Jamaican should identify the most likely area of earning. his most likely or her most likely area of earning. Now, note we never say of employment, because employment isn't the only option. More and more we realize that we have to become entrepreneurs, and we're going to discuss that a little bit later, because the factory that used to hire 100 people in 1980s now hiring 10 people. They call it mechanization and automation. And so more persons who were part of the working class seeking wages, they now have to be seeking profit, even though they don't have the assets to be naturally a part of the profit seekers. And so they are now going into industries that we have to encourage, that have low levels of, and Senator Mayor, you are very much in tune with what we're talking about, of those industries for the poor, low barrier industries. So when I said this is an independent Jamaican, we have to look at what has been the contribution of the government in the last 3 years to creating this independent Jamaican. What have been the shortfalls of the government? What have been the achievements of the government in achieving this independent Jamaican? Now let us look at some of the proposals also that we're going to have. Now, I see you laughing over there, but this is some of the things that we are talking about right now. If you're not going to do it, just call the election and make we do it. That's right. Let's call the election and let us do it. Yes, so when you check the Reid situation, yes, we said that they must have a decree. I said, well, if you're so sure, let's go. But you must have a degree or its equivalent.
What happened?
One of the biggest negatives facing the access to a degree is the period pre the degree, is the ability to matriculate. So when we said that we want Jamaicans to have a degree or its equivalent, we have to go back to all the earlier parts of education that will allow for them to matriculate for this degree. But we're having issues starting from in the belly, from conception. Now, we don't want to go too deep into the in the belly thing, because with this new conversation about abortion, what is life is a big conversation. Yes. But we are having children who are born with learning disabilities based on the fact that the mother was not properly nurtured, wasn't there. To that extent, we are calling on the government to give special consideration on the path for the pregnant woman.
That's right.
Because right now she only gets a further $16 a day. And we are having multiplicity of issues of learning disabilities. When I was in East Rural St. Andrew, we did a full study of all our students up to grade 11. And they found that the rural children had a very high level of learning disability, based on the fact that in early childhood and in the pregnancy stage, the nutrition was lacking. The nutrition was lacking, and we are not seeing sufficient effort even now to create a space for that nutrition when we capture them in these schools. So even the bulla has been taken away, and the bulla now made a mysterious return to suggest that it never have sugar anymore. And we have not seen the new menu for this bulla.
Yes.
The nutrition is important. We have learned also that very important is the first 1,000 days. In fact, I'm sure the minister is going to speak about the first 1,000 days. That from 0 to 1,000 days, that it is necessary for the person to, from conception, you have to read to them in the belly. Well, remember, we don't want to go down into what is life. But we are said to you now that in that first 1,000 days, most Jamaicans are homeschooled in that first 1,000 days. Most Jamaicans don't go to an institution in that first 1,000 days. How therefore have we not developed a syllabus for parents to use in that first 1,000 days, so that the person at the home, the parent or the adult child or the adult family member, can actually now say what are colors, what you should be, what should the child learn in the first 1,000 days. Yes. Now what we have had instead is, in my opinion, a waste of money to target 50 per constituency, when we have about 20 times that need the assistant. How are we going to choose who should be sacrificed? So instead of more efficiently spending this money in apps and television programs and information to parents and modules and tools to parents, right? And an encouragement through marketing that you should be using these in the first 1,000 days. We build 2 institutions per constituency. Well, there are some people that say, why we never did this. We didn't do some things because the priority was to take the country from the brink of disaster. The priority. And the priority is not only with financial resources, not just with financial, but also the human resource for drafting laws and rules, etc., were consumed to make sure that we could be here, that we can do these things now. Yes. And I'm saying to you, if you're not going to do it, just call it and make we do it. We're saying to you as well that when you look at the high schools, the high schools have become a factory of failure. We're training people. In 2004, I believe it is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we targeted 60% outcome with 5 CXC, including mathematics. I'm sure you're aware of it. Was it 2004? I've never, well, if you want a second question, I'll ask you which government. But the first question is, was it 2004? Yes. So in 2004, we targeted 60% of our graduates from the high school institutions that they should be at the level of 5 CSEC, including maths and English. To this point, I think we are at 21%. Where are we now? 39%. So we are still not there. But not only are we not there, you have some schools, 100 and something schools, with less than 25%. You have a school out there in St. Thomas, I don't know if you have visited, don't call the name, but it had 0%. In Kingston and St. Andrew, North Street, where the Great Kingston College exists. Great Kingston College. Across the road is St. George's. Round the road is Alpha. Alpha, Casey, and George's have a 80% chance on average of getting 5 subjects. Right across the road, Holy Trinity have a 3% chance of getting 5 subjects. A 3% chance. And not only that, the situation is getting worse because we have implemented a fake free education system that said that they don't have to pay their auxiliary fees. I'll give you an example of a school that is here now. KT used to collect up to 57% from the parents. Since this new policy, they're down to 21%. And the money that they have gotten haven't covered 7% more of what they used to collect. That is Kingston Technical. Now, Kingston College will send out a circular to Senator Braham and myself and say, we need money, we need 5,000, we need that. Or 100 years old, JC is nearly 300. We have other schools with established prime ministers for 3, 4, 5 times. They can raise money. But the non-traditional schools, the Kingston Highs of this world, they can't raise that money. So the policy now is increasing the gap available. It's cutting out some of the necessary things that the school used to do with co-curricular activity and the quality of co-curricular activity. So they can't get sport, they can't get nothing. Now understand the importance of the quality of co-curricular activity. Co-curricular activity, in my opinion, and I'm suggesting to you, Minister, for consideration, that it should be automatic, that every child have to do one. It should be automatic. Because I'm tired of walking around and seeing Jamaicans without no confidence because they have never been in a system that helps to create the feeling and knowledge of competing and winning and achieving things. And so when you're talking to them, it's like them in an embassy line. Them look frail and shame. Them head bow down. And there are many schools. You have schools like Arden that have 22 clubs.
Or Westwood.
Westwood.
Yes, man. Yes.
Monroe. And then you have some other schools that a child that says an athlete is training on the netball court for athletics, track and field. True. In fact, there's a school called Donald Quarry that don't have a play field. Now, how can you name a school after Donald Quarry and it don't have a play field? We have to look into these things. So I heard you, Minister, start to embrace the concept of a 7-year exposure. 7 years, I think I hear you. Well, you embrace it. I never say when. You're answering things and not asking. But all right. So I embrace the 7%. So this 7% that you're now, right. So 7 years. So the 7 year, I'm asking that you consider, sir, that there must be streams within this 7 years. There must be streams within the 7 year, because there are some people entering into high school that are not ready for high school. They need a remedial 7 to make them get ready for high school. Some people coming in doing 13 subjects when them not even have a 31% in a GSAT, or worse than a PEP now, them don't even have 2%. I tried the PEP thing, I wouldn't pass it, I tell you the truth. But I'm telling you right now that we're having a system that people coming in are not ready. And because we cannot stop the conveyor line of human beings coming in, we need an intervention at grade 7 so that we can now reclaim these people and carry them to the point. Then there is now some who come in very qualified. I seen Calabar recently, big uproar, they were trying to kick out some of the boys that weren't learning and things like that. These boys are in the top 10% of them age cohort. What happened by 9th grade that them can't learn?
Absolutely.
So we want also that intervention by grade 10. And I came here before and said to you that we need more guidance counselors in the schools. The recommendation is 200 to everyone. The recommendation is 1 guidance counselor to every 200. We have 1 to 1,000. The minister says not 1,999. But at the same time, we have something not very near to the recommendation. And it is very important now, because when I was growing up, I never had the challenges, I never had the questions that these people are facing. I never had those questions. I was watching the cable the other day. There's a movie called Lucifer. And the movie called Lucifer says Satan is a good guy. I just watching the TV. Buck up on it. Satan is a good guy trying to fight crime, but the world don't understand him. I never had that when I was growing up to contend with.
They call it Lucifer.
No, the devil.
You never have the TV.
We never have TV. We never have access to porn. When I'm growing up, you see a little glimpse of a titty, you're excited. Now they go on this internet thing and they find all kind of porn. They need, no, but understand of a breast. Understand what I'm saying. Understand what I'm saying, that when I'm growing up, I only knew people in my circles. Yes. Everybody bathed in a tub. Yes. Now, you can go on Facebook and see somebody taking a bubble bath. You start feel a certain negative about your situation because your space of reference has increased. Why, therefore, are we not going into the schools and increasing the number of guidance counselors and increasing the number of social workers so that they can have access? Absolutely. We also have to stop delegitimizing skills, and there should be a 6th form for skills. Well, I saw where the children's home, Walker's children's home, still don't, Walker's place of safety, still don't fix it. And the minister said he hopes to find some money in this next budget. 106 million, of which they have raised 21 million.
The used car money could have paid for it.
The used car alone could have paid for it.
Yeah, 400 million.
That's 400 million.
Yeah.
The sign down in Montego Bay that they say will attract tourists.
That pay 4 social workers.
17 million. And Ransford have contributed greatly, Minister Brigham, to my study of tourism, fees and all of that. There is nothing. I will. There is nothing in that sign that can contribute to attracting tourists. A tourist attraction is what people do when they're here. An attractor is why they come here. They come here because when it's cold in their country, it is warm in our country. That's the type of tourists that we attract. We call them bird tourists. They fly south for winter. There is nothing that sign will cause for them to come. And there is nothing in the sign for them to be attracted to.
They're not staying here.
I see the sign don't value 500,000.
Oh, they are bird tourists, they'll pitch at the sign.
They'll pitch. But we have to now stop saying that if you're not academically inclined, if you're not going towards being a doctor, 6th form is not for you. And so while I accept that you have the CAP program, we want a skills sixth form. That if a person wants to be a chef, with them CXC, they can still go to the sixth form and start the training to be a chef. Instead of feeling like only if you get 2 subjects you can be a chef. You got CAP, or you have to wait till heart accepts you. So I'm happy that you're thinking about the 7-year thing, because we're sending home many 16-year-olds without subject or supervision. And then we wonder why they're a part of a gang. But more importantly, those who matriculate can't afford university. How many people know that if it is that you should look at the lowest school fee at the University of the West Indies, it is 58 weeks of minimum wage. That a person would have to save 58 weeks, don't eat, don't pay no rent, don't consume none of their minimum wage, and have to save 58 weeks for the fee. And when they say the housing and the books, etc., the total cost that they estimate is 84 weeks of minimum wage. So for every 1 year, you'd have to nearly work 2 years and eat nothing or nothing of minimum wage. That is unaffordable to those who are able to afford it. And that is why that's why we have embraced the first in the family. We are saying that the first person in every family that matriculate for the university should be able to attend without a fee. And some people are now saying, everyone, the first in the family to matriculate will go to the university without a fee. Because there is no reason that a helper's child with 10 CXC and 8 CAPE is sitting at home incapable to be a doctor. There is no reason for, thank you, my brother. And then some people who wants to be detractors, they then ask, what's the family? Because in Jamaica, you have family and man have outside woman and all of that. And Senator Braham made a big contribution last week about promoting families. Very important. But I'm saying to you that at the end of the day, you have 2 definitions that we can work with for family that will cover all our families. The first are shared descendants. Yes, are descendants of a shared ancestor. So my father, all the children of my father were a part of a family. Or my mother were a part of a family. Or at least 1 parent and 1 child under the same roof. That is also a family. So therefore, all of them will be considered to say that we want to give them that no problem in defining what is a family. Other detractors say, how are we going to afford it? It's a waste of money. How are we going to afford it? Well, we have done our research, and it suggests to us that $1.7 billion is sufficient to pay for 30% of those who matriculate. 30% of those who matriculate. 1.7 billion. The last budget was $730-something billion. That's less than 1% of the budget. But if that's not the priority, call the election and make we do it.
Yeah.
There's also a possibility of considering a trust for tertiary education. In the same way that you have a national housing trust, that we can consider a trust for tertiary education. So that I put a percent and company put a percent, and then I use my mother points and I go and now borrow money to go to school. No, that is very important, because I've been lecturing from 2005. I've never seen a deregistered student return. When they're deregistered, they have the most plans what they're going to do, what kind of work they're going to get.
Awesome.
I see the former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, Right Honorable. He said that his research showed that the average student was making $50,000 with a degree. So when you deregister a person without a degree, he might make $30,000. When would he save enough to return? They have never seen one return. We're saying that even if your parent don't contribute, even if your mother never work, your father never work, if you work for 2 years, you get your points and you come back. And that would have created a full system that we can use. The other thing is, we have to look at housing, and I'm going to come now to Senator Braham. We don't realize that part of the... Just...
All day.
Until 7:30.
It's a holder in the backyard.
time allocated for the member to speak has expired. We'd like to move that the member's time be extended sufficient for him to come.
You don't need someone.
The question, Senator Crawford. The question is that the speaker's time be extended for him to complete his presentation. Senator Crawford, within the bounds of our discussion, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Continue, please.
Thank you very much.
Continue, Holder. You're doing very well.
Thank you, sir. Now, I want to come back.
You behave like you knew West Indies cricket.
I want to come back to Senator Braham's concept of the family. I propose to you, I hypothesize, that 30% of our housing problem is because we have so many people trying to live single. That so if we have 100 housing needs, if they were engaged in a family, I propose to you that 30 would automatically come off because they would have shared houses. But we are not promoting that, not realizing the impact that is having on all the other negatives of our society. So we're saying that we want to encourage through every procedure, every avenue, the ownership of houses, and one way is to encourage families. And that is why when we had the values and attitudes, we had to push that as a part of it. Yes, that was ignored. But one other problem we find with young people getting access to housing is that they can't find the down payment. They can't find the initial down payment, the first 2 million lump sum. And so we're saying that we want the NHT to consider the rent-to-buy system. That you actually now rent at first, part of the rent go to savings, and in 5 years it moves from rent to mortgage. There's nothing that is preventing the NHT from saying, listen, $50,000 or $40,000 for rent, $20,000 maintain the property, $20,000 go to savings. In 5 years, it is now, that is a down payment, and you move on into having a mortgage. There's nothing stopping the NHT from considering it. But I also knew that the JLP as well was thinking about a generational mortgage, an intergenerational mortgage. That my parent could have taken a house and then it shift over and I get the, I pay the mortgage. I know you're working on it, but sometimes if you don't understand it, you might not cross it. So therefore we are not going to right. But let me add then some support to the concept. Because a 2-bedroom house in Portmore in 1995 was for $750,000. It is now valued $7 million. If a parent was able to get a house in 1995 and transfer that mortgage to me, I will be paying $7,000 for a $7 million house. To the contrary, she wasn't able to because the highest mortgage you can get is 50% of your income. And so now, when she go for this mortgage, they never give her the qualification. I am left without a house, and I have to now pay nearly $40,000 for the same $7 million house. It would be a great change for the people of this country if we offered the option of intergenerational mortgages. And so if it is you're working on it, work faster so that we can have more people benefit from this intergenerational
But you have to have
mortgage.
people who can implement it.
Yeah. As I said, they don't understand it, they cannot cross it. And then we have to also look now upon health. Now, we have a report of almost 18 children that have died already because of dengue, you know. Children. And that is after we were warned 10 months before, 9 months before, that there is the likelihood that this will happen. And that is after we spent 600 million pound bushing. That is after we spent another £1 billion pound St. Mary. That is when we diverted money into garbage bin. The election into St. Mary.
Right,
we spent 35 million on just the fanciness of the garbage bin. Now, if we did actually spray paint some jump, if we did carry it down to Edna Manley and make them put images on it, and then we never clean the drains.
Shame.
And now we have people reported, some people say over 30 died, but the minister figures.
Believe the people.
The minister figures. Today I read 500 in January alone, in Portmore alone.
What?
identified
What them did call them
as
mosquito
dengue
last
affected.
time?
Identified as dengue affected. Not only that, I read also last week Sunday in the newspaper that we still cannot find 215 children that were missing from 2018.
What?
We can't find 265 children that were missing from 2016.
What?
We can't find 195 children that were missing from 2017. What actions are being taken? Because I don't see the same amount of text coming to my phone. Like go to the store and buy. To say, have you seen this person? What are we doing? Have we just identified them or acknowledged that? Are there styrofoam boxes? We're just doing nothing to find a consistent 200 over the last 3 years that have been reported missing and not found. And we don't have it on TV every day. Have you seen this person? We don't have it in the billboards. But every time I look on Twitter, the government is promoting itself. Yeah. Every time I go on Facebook, it's promoting itself. It's saying, look at this, look at that. But we have not seen one image
Of the missing children.
of almost 1,000 missing children in the last 3 years.
Oh, boy. What
We
a
have to
thing.
look at these things and say, what's the right? I have not seen.
Let's say.
So all I'm saying is the level of effort that Minister Tufton is taking now to take picture in every drum that he can find.
Yeah.
Counting every mosquito.
He counts every mosquito that exists.
Every pool of water.
He puts up a photograph of every puddle of water that he steps in.
The only man competing with him is Reid.
And
You run a distance second.
I know why you say that about the man.
Yeah, man.
The final thing I want to say. I want to say Mr. Speaker, but Mr. President. The final
You'll get there.
The final thing I want to say.
You'll get there.
Yeah, but I don't know if you will be there. That's the problem.
Time is the master.
But Mr. President, I come back to the concept of volunteers.
Yes, yes.
I come back to the concept of volunteers. You know, we could actually say if you give 200 hours of volunteerism, your NHT go down by 1%. Instead of 6%, it's 5%. We could say that people, if you're willing to volunteer, we will incentivize you to contribute to the development. Because I used to have football training with a man when I know not about football, but it was an organized activity with an adult. And in many cases, a male that enough of them not having them life. And I want us to know to say, what can we do to get more adults who are qualified? And may I see you looking, I see you interested in this one. Kingston can be the start and St. Andrew. Yeah. We say, yo, we are going to offer incentives
KCC.
for people to do that. And then,
Senator, address this to me. If you offer somebody incentive to volunteer, they are no longer volunteers.
well, if you don't create enough remuneration, then there's a portion of volunteerism. So their effort is greater than the incentive, therefore it is not fully remunerated. You have to be careful, you know, Mr. President. You don't want the kids to understand. You want the kids to understand.
It's a partial volunteer.
Yeah. But, Mr. Chairman, we have many people, Mr. President, partial volunteers. But across the world, in fact, in Australia, they have a department of volunteerism, and it have all kind of special things. In fact, private sector participate where you can get discount for hotels and all of those things. It's across the world. But we have to also look now on the industries for the poor. What are the areas of employment or profit that the young people have? And we have found that when we observe those areas, them getting a fight from the government. One of which we have to look at is the taxi. Now look at the taxi service. We have a system that the JUTC have to be subsidized at about $3 billion this year. The JUTC have to charge the same fee as a taximan who is not subsidized. So the fare that the taximan charge is the same fare that the JUTC charge, but the JUTC cannot be profitable. It have to be subsidized $3 billion. Now, in addition to that, you ask yourself, why the taxi man drives so bad? There's no way every taxi man could be a bad driver. There must be a systematic problem why every man act that way. But if you're going to look at revenue, revenue is price times quantity.
Yes.
If the government set the price, which is unprofitable for even the government's entity, then the taxi man start to focus on quantity. He want to carry more people at a time. He want to hurry up and reach and hurry up and come back, because he in a day must transport much more than is normal to transport.
Yeah.
We have to look at that. The system have been set against him.
Yeah, the system
but in this type of service, buy a taxi and run a taxi, many young people have found an avenue for income. We have to look at entertainment. And the mayor here make a brilliant presentation last week. You have to look again at the Noise Abatement Act. We have to realize that Jamaica too broke for everybody asleep at the same time. But at the same time, we can't have people that keep up other people. That's right. So downtown, as you know, Mayor discussed right now, downtown is an excellent place based upon the heights of the building and the water and thing for us to have a local zone. Yes. We can start by giving these people the opportunities. Because I met a man, team and president, who say he makes weekly $25,000 from keeping a party. To me, it sounds, look a bit, I said, why would you do all of this with $25,000 a week and keep it every Tuesday? He says, other than that, I will be making $7,000 minimum wage. So he's making nearly 3, 4, 5 times what he would have made by creating an entertainment activity. We are killing entertainment. We're killing entertainment without understanding what it is that we left there when we had Kingston be named as a creative city. That was to make entertainment be an attractor. Why we left there 90 days of summer called Jamrock Summer. That in the 90 days of summer we would use entertainment to attract people to Jamaica and participate in that type of space. When we went to get reggae recognized, and it is very unfair that when things come true, you know, even that even invite them or invite we for come and sing. Yes, but when we went to UNESCO for reggae,
them have a term for it, you know.
But them for boss we stay. Them for say, Mr. Crawford, we know you'd have fight for it. But we were not only fighting for it to be recognized by UNESCO.
That, you know?
We wanted that once recognized, then we would use reggae as an attractor. That we would go further and now try to get back the money for our artists that have not been paid over to Jamaica. It would have given us great standing in the court to say it has been acknowledged by UNESCO that reggae is a Jamaican output, and therefore even though many of our older artists' names were not on the title, that they should be rewarded. None of that is happening right now. So we're saying to you, members of the Senate, the type of country that we want is one that have Jamaicans become independent by age 30. If that is going to happen, we have to start to remove the hindrances that exist from them getting a degree or its equivalent. One, that Cubans stop taking over our hotels. That they go to a Jamaican hotel and entertainment is being provided by foreigners.
One, that the minister
you go to
from Jamaican manufacturers to the visitors.
Where craft. Well, yeah, thank you, Lamy, but I told them say time up. But
no man.
The Minister of Tourism. The Minister of Tourism. Right? He is hosting an international thing in Jamaica and giving away foreign craft. That is so ridiculous.
Shame.
So much so that the JMEA president come out to say, how is it? Now craft is the poor part of tourism, you know. Is the industry within tourism that the poorest Jamaicans likely participate is in craft and entertainment. And we have replaced them with foreign craft and foreign entertainers. We left a craft policy there. We spent months and months preparing a craft policy. A craft policy that would protect the industry, that will cause for a person to create and earn instead of have to sell. We left that craft policy there. We left the craft policy with an authentic Jamaica brand that we copyright, and that brand can only be sold in the craft market. And that will allow for Edna Manley people to create craft that other vendors sell. None of that has been done, and then we take foreign craft and sell it. These are things that we have to look at, because it is reducing the possibility that we can become independent. So if it pleases you, Mr. President, I'm asking that we look holistically at this thing, because all the money that we say we want in the last 3 weeks, the devaluation of the dollar has cost this country 100 billion if we should pay that debt right now. If the debt was to be paid now, 60% of our debt is in foreign exchange, almost 9.9 trillion or billion or whatever. That if we should move it from 127 to where is it now, in 3 days we lose 100 billion. That is causing for the schools not to get what they need. That is causing for the homes not to get what they need. That is causing for the infrastructure not to be what it needs. That is causing for the hospitals not to get what they need. Because somehow the government says that if we do inflation targeting, we cannot simultaneously manage the foreign exchange. And those are the things, Mr. President, defeating the system. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, man. Well done.
Excellent.
Well done.
Thank you.
You see all the batting heavy over here? Heavy.
Thank you, thank you, Senator Crawford. Senator. Thank you, Senator Crawford. Senator Reid, I recognize you from a seat other than your own. Proceed, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's been a very eventful morning so far, and I thank colleague Senator for his spirited presentation. I will have an opportunity to make a few comments on transforming what I see are ideas into action. Mr. President, colleagues, I deem this a privilege to contribute in this State of the Nation debate. I want to signal my gratitude for the opportunity to serve the nation in this capacity as Minister of Education, Youth and Information, a responsibility that was bestowed on me nearly 3 years ago by the first post-independence born Prime Minister of Jamaica, our great builder, our great leader, Prime Minister, the most Honorable Andrew Holness, the best ever Prime Minister that Jamaica has seen. I look forward to continuing to serve with him as we rebuild this great country. Take it from where, you talk about development and independence, where Jamaica really ought to have been. Yes. And I speak about that in a little while, because my good friend, Senator Crawford, conveniently forgets very often our history. Because, and I make it very clear, we ought to have been fathered. A lot of the things you talk about, you should have fixed those problems long ago. But there is a reason right across there that has held back the progress of this country for these many years. But I'll get to there in a little while. I am grateful, therefore, Mr. President, for the opportunity to serve and transform this country through education. Mr. President, one thing I live by as a husband, father, minister, lay preacher, and educator: put Jah God first, second and third, and watch the blessings come forth. Blessings come forth. I want to pay. Yes, man, you're not listening. I'm indeed thankful for the support I've been receiving, especially from my family, and Senator Lambert, those of us who serve in the public space at great sacrifice to our families. And a lot of sometimes the things that are said and done, they have to absorb. And I want to thank my wife Sharon and our 2 children for their patience and their support. I want to recognize Minister of State Floyd Green, who is here in the House this morning, because we are able, Minister Green, to say to Senator Crawford that what you have are only ideas. What Minister Green and I have been doing is implementing, is rebuilding Jamaica. I want to recognize our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Leroy Bernard, our Chief Education Officer, OD, Order of Distinction that we bestowed on her for excellent service to education and the people of Jamaica. To all the rest of the team of the Ministry of Education who are here this morning, and our agencies, Early Child Commission and all the other agencies. Thank for the support, Senator Lambert Brown, to the Jamaica College family, because let us not forget that you had asked me to transform Jamaica College. That was on the brink, along with President Tom Tavares Finson, and that the Prime Minister asked me to transform the education system as a result of that. I want to thank my colleague senators for their support, Jamaica Labour Party family for their support, to the Friends of Rural Reid Group, many of them who are here, for their support, my management team, the councillors represented from the constituency of Northwest St. Anne, and my other constituents who are here in the gallery this morning. I want to recognize all of you. I give toast to all the friends we take off the heavy load. So, Mr. President, I'm the caretaker for Northwest St. Anne.
With all the councillors.
I dubbed this address, Mr. President, not about ideas. It's about action. Action navigating education 4.0.